Hey everybody, Box700 here, and yeah, I haven't really made a video in a while, but the videos are starting up again, and now we're going to start with a review on the Axial Terra Buggy. So, yeah, let's begin. So you can get this, this is a kit version, by the way. You can get this as a kit on most websites for about $200, like I said, as a kit. The hobby shops usually sell for a little bit more like $300, so a lot more, but online you can usually find it for about $200. Okay, so now we're gonna cover what it comes with. So when you get the kit, it's just your regular kit, really. You have a bunch of bags and an unpainted body, which is pretty unique, and your instruction manual, which is right there. Fortunately, it is not color, but, you know, I mean, there's a lot of black, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, alright, so first, I suppose we'll talk about the actual build of the vehicle. It was a very long build. I think it took me somewhere around 10 hours to build the car. And I did have some issues. For example, I had an issue with the spur gear, clearing the... There's a little... Here, I'll show you guys. So, on the chassis, which I'll talk about later, you can see this little plastic piece. The spur gear kept rubbing up against that piece whenever I put it in there, so I had some binding issues that it took me a while to figure out how to fix some of those issues, but eventually I did. Some other things about this build. Well, I would say there are a lot of things that take a very long time but aren't necessarily hard, like some screws are difficult, and they do supply you with a bottle of Loctite for the screws, but it's very thin, not very nice stuff. You should probably get your own. They also supply you with a cross wrench, but no Allens. So, yeah, and the instruction manual, and yeah. So the body pieces you'll get in the kit, you'll get the hood, which is separate, these side panels, the roof, and there's also these little corners in the back here. Those little guys in the back. And then this is a two-piece side panel where the battery goes in. We'll talk about that more later. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah, and also, this kit does have an interior. I have it taken out right now just because, believe me when I say this, guys, it is such a pain. With the interior, putting the battery in takes something around like 3 minutes, and you can't do anything with the car without having to take off the cage. Now, let me talk about the cage. So, on a regular Lexan body RC, like this one, all you gotta do, you take your hand and you take the body off, and voila, it's off. This works a little bit differently. Let me explain. Alright, so on the bottom of the kit, you can kind of hear the rocks coming out. We have 18 long self-tapping screws to take off the cage. Right there, right there, right there, there, there. Oh, what else? You also have to unscrew your the tops of your shocks. You have to take off your rear tires. You have to unscrew this screw, that screw, the bottoms of your, then you have to unscrew the bottoms of your rear shocks. And then you also have to undo this screw and this screw. And then you can finally take off the cage. Doing all of that takes somewhere around 10 minutes 15 minutes if you don't have even with the driver, it takes close to 10 minutes just to take off this cage. That is the major downside. Another thing I forgot to mention, it also does come with a transparent Lexan fake engine to put in the back. I didn't put it in, that's just getting a little bit cheesy for me. But yeah, it comes with that too. And you do have to trim all the Lexan, which is something that I hate. Okay. Yeah, trying to get the light right. Anyway, next we're going to talk about the looks of this car. I mean, the scale details are pretty amazing. It has this light bar up here, which is great. It also has these licensed Hankook Dynapro MT tires, which are also really nice. So that's good. Yeah, and it's just a great looking car, really. My paint job didn't quite turn out how I wanted it to, but paint job isn't everything, I guess. Another thing we'll talk about is the scale of this car. It's sort of hard to call because the wheelbase is exactly the same as a 110 scale short course truck, which is exactly the same as a 1/8 scale buggy. This is technically a buggy, but it's not an 8th scale buggy. It's technically a 10th scale buggy, but it has the wheelbase of an 8th scale buggy, which is the same as a short course truck. So it's very confusing. I think what they mean is that it's 10th the scale of the real deal, pre-runner desert buggy. Just to give you an idea of how big it is, I suppose we'll just take a standard 10th scale car. We'll take this Traxxas Rustler. You can see it's a little bit longer. They're pretty similar in size. The XO is just slightly bigger. But yeah. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the required electronics for this kit. You will need a 540 4-pole or a 550 2-pole. I didn't have either of those. I actually just had a 540 2-pole laying around, so I decided, what the heck, and I put it in there. I have the Traxxas Millennium system in there, ESC. Let me tell you, it works great. It's really fine. You get plenty of power. As for the servo, I recommend something with a little bit more speed. I have a Savox 1258 TG, which is 166 ounce inches of torque, and 0.07 second transit time. That's another great servo. And then, I just have standard 24 gigahertz receiver as well as a capacitor. You're probably going to want a capacitor for those super power hungry servos. Yeah, okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is the battery. You're supposed to just run it on 2S LiPo. Just, your standard, Gen Z's, whatever, 2S LiPo pack. It fits in there fine, and we also have this 3-cell pack, which will fit in there. I modified the straps. I made them a little bit longer so I could fit my 3-cell pack in there, and this thing rips on 3-cell. It's pretty awesome. With the Valiant system and the stock pinion, you get decent speed. You could probably gear it up a little. I put in an 11-tooth pinion and a 3-cell, so I like that setup. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is the battery. Okay, so it has this little flap, and it's actually held on. It's actually held on by 2 body clips. So once you take this off, and there's also this little ledge that sort of goes under there, like that. It's kind of weird. Okay, I'm just gonna try to get the light in there. Yeah, that is what you have to get your battery in there. That's all you have. And there's that bar in the way. It's pretty hard, and they have these elastic straps which don't really make it easier. But with the interior, it takes about 2 minutes to put a battery in there. It takes skill. I might actually post a video on how to do it. But yeah. So yes. Next, we're going to talk about the suspension. The shocks, the stock shocks, they're crap. I mean, enough said. They're complete crap. I actually have the stock shocks, but I changed the setup. They wanted 30 weight oil. That's what came with it. And another thing I should mention before I talk about that is that this is set up like an 8th scale buggy. It has a center diff and differentials in the front and back. And they supply you with 2 weights of shock oils, the heavier 20,000 for the center diff. They want, like I said, 30 weight for the shocks all around. Oh, let me tell you, that's not heavy enough. I put 50 weight in the front. These aren't the stock springs either. The stock ones, they're gray and they're too soft. I actually have 50 weight in the front and 40 weight in the back. You may wonder why I have heavier weight in the front for something that I'm not even doing racing with. That's because this thing nosedives like crazy. I mean, it's pretty crazy how badly this thing nosedives. And you know, but the weirdest thing is that if I pick up this thing, it has perfect weight balance front to rear. In fact, it's actually a little bit heavier in the back. I'm picking it up with 2 fingers, and as you can see, it's perfectly balanced. So, perfect weight distribution. So then why does it nosedive? Part of the reason for that is the suspension setup, and part of the reason is because there's not really any airflow through the back with the seats and the fake radiator and all that stuff. Also the wing, you know, the wing's completely for aesthetics. It's not in a position where it'd really do anything. But with this new, I mean, it still nosedives with my suspension setup, but it's not nearly as bad. Yeah. Also, I figured out that the stock, servo saver settings are a little bit slow, or a little bit. They're just not stiff enough. It's a little bit soft. Now, speaking of softness, let's talk about the tires. They're kind of like a medium compound sort of tire. I mean, you know, they're fine. They're not great, but they definitely do the job. I mean, it will traction roll on concrete. Another thing is the wheel nuts. The stock ones, they don't have any serrations on them, so they will back off very easily. I put some Traxxas Rustler wheel nuts on there, and those work fine. They do still back off, so just make sure you tighten them after every run. Okay, next thing about the handling. It does have this big old cage on the top, so it rolls around a little bit. But I actually put STRC jam and sway bars on there. Those will fit on this vehicle, and they helped quite a bit with the handling. It doesn't traction roll as much, as you can see. If I push, it holds a lot better. Okay, and I suppose I'll show you the interior again. It comes with a bunch of decals. It's very, very scale and whatnot. The shocks are I didn't tell you guys, they're plastic, but they are threaded, which is that's something. But well, what can you do? I am running fans on this vehicle, so that setup seems to be working pretty well. Also, another note: if you're building this kit, one thing to note is that the rear tires and rims are actually slightly wider than the ones on the front, so that's another thing to know. Okay. I'm not sure why it looks so dark on the camera, because trust me, it's perfectly light, but I don't know why it looks so dark. Oh well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Some more things about the build. It took a very long time, and definitely a long build. I don't know if this was actually my first kit, and I had no problems, but yeah. Another thing is that it doesn't really have a rear shock tower, so if you were to put a rear shock tower on here, and some body mounts, I think theoretically you could technically make it, and you could run it without the cage. I have no idea how to do that, but you could probably figure it out if you worked at it. With the Vallejo system on the 2S LiPo, I'd say this thing probably does about 30. With the 3-cell, it probably does something like 40, 45. It's not a speed machine, but it handles very, very well. It corners well. It jumps okay if you have the suspension dialed. And yeah, overall, it's just a great kit for the price. I mean, at first the price was, I think, $350, $350, which is pretty crazy for something where, it's pretty much all plastic parts. I mean, that's just crazy asking price. But now the price has been lowered down to $200, so it's much more affordable, and I highly recommend it. I've had a lot of fun with this kit. Oh, one more thing, it does have dog bones front and rear. You can do a modification on the back. They will pop out. So what I did is I took these little red O-rings that the kit will come with, and I put them by the little diff hubs, and now they're spaced out, and they will not come out. Same thing with the front. If the factory settings, they don't want you cambered. they want the wheels cambered in really weird, and so the dog bones pop out. Also has 2 central dog bones. Another thing about the build is that it's very unforgiving. If you screw something up, chances are you're going to have to pretty much undo all of your progress, and you're going to have to try again. Just the way everything goes together, it's like everything has to go in a certain order. Otherwise, you can't put it together. So you have to be very careful when you're building it. I did experience some binding in the diffs too, but now that they're broken in, that's fine. But yeah, that's pretty much my review on the Axial Terra Buggy. It also does come with a bunch of stickers and such. So yeah, that's pretty much my review on the Axial Terra Buggy. I highly recommend it. It's a very good car. Alright, thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe for more videos.